When I walked into my brother's kitchen that Tuesday morning, I never expected to find my dreams scattered at the bottom of his trash can. My brand new business cards, the ones that cost me my last $50, were covered in coffee grounds and banana peels like worthless garbage. But 3 days later, something impossible happened. Zane's boss called me on the phone. She knew all about my pet care business. She wanted to offer me a contract worth $50,000. And she kept calling me the owner like I was someone important. How could my brother throw away my business cards one day and secretly promote my business to his company the next? And why would he hurt me so badly when he was actually trying to help me succeed? I'm standing in my brother Zane's kitchen and I can't breathe. My brand new business cards are scattered across the bottom of his garbage can like broken dreams. The crisp white cards with gold lettering that cost me my last $50 are now stained with coffee grounds and banana peels. Zane, I call out, my voice shaking so hard I barely recognize it. Zane, get in here right now. He appears in the doorway, still wearing his fancy suit from his marketing job at Henderson & Associates. His tie is perfectly straight, his dark hair perfectly styled, everything about him screaming success, while I stand here in my thrift store jeans and worn sneakers, digging through his trash like some kind of desperate animal. What's all the yelling about, River? He says, loosening his tie with one smooth motion. He looks tired, the way he always does after his important job with important people doing important things. What's all the yelling about? I can barely get the words out. These were my business cards. Zane. My business cards for River's Pet Care. I hold up one of the soggy cards, watching the gold ink run down my fingers like tears. I saved for 3 months to get these printed. 3 months of eating ramen noodles and walking everywhere because I couldn't afford gas. He rolls his eyes and walks to the refrigerator, pulling out a bottle of fancy water. Come on, River, you're being dramatic. Those cards were just cluttering up my counter. Cluttering up your counter? My voice gets higher with each word. I left them here for 1 day. 1 day because I was excited to show you that I finally had real business cards with my name and phone number and everything. Real business cards for what? He takes a long drink of his water, looking at me like I'm a child having a tantrum. River, you're not seriously calling that pet thing a business, are you? The words hit me like a slap across the face. I actually take a step backward, bumping into his granite countertop that probably costs more than I make in 6 months. That pet thing, I whisper. Zane, I have 15 regular clients. I make enough money to pay my rent and buy groceries and even save a little bit each month. How is that not a business? Because real businesses don't operate out of someone's tiny apartment with handmade flyers, he snaps, his voice getting sharp the way it does when he's about to say something mean. Real businesses have offices and employees and profit margins. You walk a few dogs and feed some cats for pocket change. That's not a career, River. That's just playing pretend. I look down at the ruined cards in my hands. Each one represents something I've been building brick by brick for the past year. It started small, just Mrs. Chen's poodle Biscuit when she had to work late. Then the Martinez family asked if I could feed their 3 cats during their vacation. Word spread through the neighborhood, and suddenly I had Mr. Patterson asking for daily dog walks, and the Johnsons needing someone to check on their elderly cat twice a day. It's not much, but it's mine. Every happy tail wag, every grateful text message, every time someone trusts me with their beloved pet. It all matters to me. I'm not playing pretend, I say quietly, fishing more soggy cards out of the trash. These animals depend on me. Their families depend on me. Their families pay you $10 to walk around the block, Zane says. And there's something cruel in his voice that I've never heard before. That's not dependence, River. That's convenience. I want to tell him about Mrs. Chen, who works 70-hour weeks, but always asks about Biscuit's favorite toy. I want to tell him about the Martinez children, who draw pictures of their cats and leave them on the kitchen counter for me to find. I want to tell him about Mr. Patterson, whose wife died last year, and how his old dog Charlie is the only thing that makes him smile anymore. But looking at Zane's face, at the irritation and embarrassment written across his perfect features, I realize he wouldn't understand. He's never understood. Fine, I say, my voice so quiet it's almost a whisper. You're probably right. I'm just playing pretend. I gather up as many of the ruined cards as I can salvage and stuff them into my backpack. Out of 50 cards, maybe 10 are still readable. The rest are too damaged to give to anyone without looking completely unprofessional. River, wait, Zane calls after me as I head for the door. There's something different in his voice now, something that almost sounds like panic. I didn't mean, but I'm already walking out of his perfect apartment, with its perfect furniture and perfect view of the city, clutching my destroyed business cards and wondering if maybe my brother is right. Maybe I am just playing pretend. Maybe 15 clients and enough money to live on isn't enough to call myself a real business owner. Maybe I'm just fooling myself into thinking I matter. As I wait for the elevator, I can hear Zane calling my name through his closed door. But I don't turn around. Right now, I can't look at him without seeing the disappointment in his eyes. The same disappointment I've been seeing from my family my whole life. The elevator doors close, and I watch the numbers count down. 15, 14, 13. By the time I reach the lobby, I've made a decision. If Zane thinks my business isn't real, then I'll prove him wrong. I'll make it so real that even he can't ignore it. But first, I need to figure out how to afford new business cards. Back in my tiny studio apartment, I spread the salvaged business cards on my kitchen table like pieces of a broken puzzle. The table is really just a card table I bought at a garage sale, but it's mine. Everything in this apartment is small and secondhand, but it's all mine. Out of 50 cards, maybe 10 are still clean enough to give to someone. The rest look like they went through a blender. I pick up one that's only slightly coffee-stained and try to smooth out the wrinkles, but it's hopeless. My phone buzzes with a text message. It's from Mrs. Chen. River, can you take Biscuit for an extra walk today? I'm working late again. The Peterson account is being difficult. I stare at the message for a long moment. Mrs. Chen is a tax attorney who works at one of those big downtown firms where people wear suits that cost more than my monthly rent. She's always apologizing for asking me to do extra walks, like she thinks she's bothering me. But the truth is, taking care of Biscuit is one of the best parts of my day. I text back, of course, I'll pick him up at 2 p.m. Don't worry about anything. Within seconds, she responds, you're a lifesaver. I don't know what I'd do without you. I put my phone down and look at my ruined business cards again. Mrs. Chen doesn't think I'm playing pretend. She thinks I'm a lifesaver. Maybe that's enough. Growing up, Zane was always the golden child. Honor roll every semester, student body president, full scholarship to business school. I was the kid who struggled with dyslexia, who learned differently, who found comfort with animals instead of people. Our parents made it clear who they were proud of, and it wasn't me. River has such a big heart, Mom would say to her friends, which was her polite way of saying I wasn't smart enough for anything important. She's always been good with animals. It was like being good with animals was some kind of consolation prize for not being good with math or science or anything that actually mattered. But sitting here in my small apartment, looking at pictures on my phone from the past year of work, I wonder if maybe Mom was right for the wrong reasons. Maybe being good with animals does matter. Maybe it matters a lot. I scroll through photos of Biscuit playing in the park, of the Martinez cats curled up together in their favorite sunny spot, of Mr. Patterson's dog, Charlie, wearing the birthday hat I bought him last month. These aren't just animals to me. They're family members to the people who love them. I'm about to start researching how much new business cards cost when I notice an envelope on my floor near the door. It must have fallen out of my backpack when I was digging around for my keys. The paper is thick and expensive looking, with Henderson and Associates printed in elegant letters in the corner. Henderson and Associates, that's Zane's company. I pick up the envelope and turn it over. It's addressed to R. Blackwood, business owner, in Zane's handwriting. My heart stops. Business owner? Why would something from Zane's company be addressed to me as a business owner? I should probably just drop it off at his office. The last thing I want is to face him again after this morning. But the envelope feels heavy in my hands, like it contains something important. I stuff it into my backpack and try to forget about it. I have work to do. An hour later, I'm walking Biscuit through Riverside Park, watching him chase squirrels and sniff every interesting smell. The afternoon sun is warm on my face. And for a moment, I can almost forget about the disaster with my business cards. At least you think I'm important, don't you, Biscuit? I say to the little poodle. He stops chasing a leaf and runs back to me, tail wagging so hard his whole body wiggles. He jumps up and licks my hand, and for just a moment, the hurt in my chest feels a little lighter. We walk past the fancy office buildings downtown, their glass windows reaching toward the sky like monuments to success. Through the windows, I can see people in sharp suits, sitting in conference rooms, making decisions that probably affect thousands of people. I wonder what it would feel like to be important like that, to have people listen when you talk, to matter in some big, obvious way. But then Biscuit tugs on his leash, wanting to investigate a particularly interesting fire hydrant. And I remember that I do matter. Maybe not to thousands of people, but to 15 families who trust me with the creatures they love most. That has to count for something. When I get home, I sit down at my laptop and open a new document. If Zane thinks my business isn't real, then I'll make it more real. I'll get a business license, create a proper website, maybe even rent a small office space. I'll show him that Rivers Pet Care isn't just playing pretend. I start typing up a business plan, the way I learned in the one business class I took at community college before I ran out of money. Mission statement: to provide reliable, loving pet care services that give busy families peace of mind and help strengthen the bond between people and their animals. It sounds official written out like that. Professional. But first, I still need to solve the business card problem. New cards will cost at least $50, and that's $50 I don't have right now. My savings account has exactly $12.37 in it. I'm about to close my laptop when an email notification pops up in the corner of my screen. The sender is Margaret Henderson, and the subject line reads, "Urgent, need to speak with business owner immediately." My heart stops completely. Margaret Henderson, as in Henderson and Associates, as in Zane's boss. I click on the email with trembling fingers. "Dear Ms. Blackwood," it reads, "I hope this message finds you well. I've heard excellent things about your innovative pet care services, and I was hoping we could schedule a meeting to discuss a potential partnership opportunity. We've been looking for someone with your unique approach to animal-assisted wellness, and I believe we may have found exactly what we need. Please contact me at your earliest convenience. Best regards, Margaret Henderson, CEO." I read the email 3 times before the words actually sink in. Margaret Henderson is the CEO of Henderson and Associates, and she wants to meet with me about my innovative pet care services and my unique approach to animal-assisted wellness. I don't have an approach to animal-assisted wellness. I just walk dogs and feed cats and try to make sure everyone is happy and healthy. Don't I? My phone starts ringing, making me jump so hard I almost knock over my laptop. The caller ID shows a number I don't recognize, but underneath it says Henderson and Associates. With shaking hands, I answer the phone. "Hello?" My voice comes out as barely a whisper. "Is this River Blackwood?" The voice is crisp and professional, with a slight British accent that makes everything sound important. "Yes, this is River." "Wonderful. This is Margaret Henderson, CEO of Henderson and Associates. I sent you an email just a few minutes ago, but I was hoping we could speak directly. I have a proposition that I think you'll find very interesting." I'm still staring at my laptop screen, trying to make sense of what's happening. What kind of proposition? Well, I'd rather discuss the details in person, if you don't mind, but I'll say this. We've been looking for a partner for our corporate wellness initiative, and your pet therapy program sounds exactly like what we need. Pet therapy program? I don't have a pet therapy program. I have a handful of neighborhood clients and a bunch of soggy business cards. I think there might be some confusion, I start to say, but Margaret interrupts me. "Nonsense! Your brother gave us the most brilliant presentation about your work last week. The way you've structured your business model around emotional support and stress relief for working professionals is exactly what the corporate world needs right now." The room starts spinning around me. My brother, Zane, gave them a presentation about my business? The same brother who just threw my business cards in the trash and told me I was playing pretend. "I'm sorry," I managed to say, "but I think you should probably speak with my brother directly about this." "Oh, but I am speaking with the right person," Margaret says, and I can hear the smile in her voice. "Zane was very clear that you're the brains behind the operation. He said he's just the marketing support, but you're the one with the vision and the heart for this work. Quite humble of him, really." I'm so confused, I can barely think straight. Zane called me the one with the vision? The same Zane who said I was just playing pretend? "Mrs. Henderson," I say slowly, "I need to be completely honest with you. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. River, dear, she interrupts again. Let me be frank with you. We're prepared to offer you a contract worth $50,000 for the first year, with the potential for much more if the program is successful. Now, I know that might sound overwhelming, but I have a feeling you're exactly the kind of person who can handle this kind of opportunity. $50,000.
Never seen that much money in my entire life.
That's more than I make in 3 years of walking dogs and feeding cats. I can't form words. I need some time to think about this. Of course. How about we meet tomorrow morning at 10? My office is on the 30th floor of the Henderson building downtown. Do you know where that is?
Yes, I whisper.
Excellent. And River?
Yes.
Bring that enthusiasm your brother told us about. I have a feeling we're going to do great things together. After she hangs up, I sit in stunned silence for what feels like hours. Then I grab my phone and call Zane. It goes straight to voicemail.
Ah,
Zane, I say after the beep, my voice shaking with confusion and anger and something that might be hope. What did you do? Henderson and Associates wants to give me a contract for $50,000, and they think I have a pet therapy program. Call me back. Now. I hang up and stare at the envelope from Henderson and Associates, still sitting on my kitchen table. With trembling hands, I tear it open. Inside is a detailed business proposal titled River's Pet Care and Therapeutic Services. It's written in Zane's neat handwriting, but it's all about my business, my clients, my approach, my vision for helping people through their connection with their pets. At the bottom of the last page, there's a note. River, you were right. This is real. You're real. I'm sorry. I read the note 3 times, my hands shaking so hard the paper rustles. You're real. Maybe I am. I sit at my kitchen table, reading Zane's business proposal over and over, until my eyes hurt. He's taken everything I've ever told him about my clients and turned it into something that sounds important and professional. Ms. Chen's anxiety about leaving Biscuit alone becomes stress reduction through reliable pet care for high-achieving professionals. The Martinez children's worry about their cats becomes family wellness through comprehensive pet support systems. He's made my small, simple business sound like it could change the world. I flip through the pages, amazed at how much detail he's included. Client testimonials I don't remember giving him. Financial projections that make me look like I actually know what I'm doing. A comprehensive marketing strategy that uses words I've never heard before. At the top of page 3, there's a section titled Innovative Therapeutic Approach. I read it twice before I realized he's describing the way I talk to anxious pets. How I help shy cats feel safe. How I know exactly which dogs need firm leadership and which ones need gentle encouragement. I've never thought of any of that as therapeutic. I just pay attention to what each animal needs. But reading Zane's description, I start to understand something. Maybe there's more to what I do than I realized. Maybe walking Mr. Patterson's dog, Charlie, isn't just about exercise. Maybe it's about giving a lonely widower a reason to get up every morning, knowing his best friend will be happy and tired when he gets home. Maybe feeding the Martinez cats isn't just about putting food in bowls. Maybe it's about letting busy parents focus on their work without worrying, knowing their children's beloved pets are safe and cared for. Maybe helping Mrs. Chen with Biscuit isn't just about dog walking. Maybe it's about giving a hardworking professional one less thing to stress about, so she can be her best self both at work and at home. My phone buzzes with a text from Mr. Patterson. River, Charlie has been so much happier since you started walking him. Yesterday, he actually wagged his tail when the mailman came. Thank you for giving me my happy dog back. I stare at the message, tears blurring my vision. Giving me my happy dog back. That's not just pet care. That's something bigger. I look at my reflection in my laptop screen. The girl staring back at me looks young and scared and completely out of her depth. Tomorrow morning, I'm supposed to walk into a skyscraper and meet with the CEO of a major company. I don't even own a proper business suit, but maybe that's okay. Maybe Margaret Henderson doesn't want someone who looks like everyone else. Maybe she wants someone who actually cares about what she's doing. I spend the rest of the evening researching Henderson and Associates online. They're a marketing and consulting firm that works with huge corporations. Their website shows photos of serious-looking people in expensive clothes, shaking hands and pointing at charts. Everyone looks important and confident and like they know exactly what they're doing. I definitely don't belong in that world. But then I find a section about their corporate values: innovation, authenticity, Human connection. Under the human connection heading, there's a quote from Margaret Henderson herself. In a world that's becoming more digital every day, we believe the most successful companies are the ones that remember to prioritize the human element. The human element. Maybe that's what I bring to the table. Not fancy degrees or business experience, but an understanding of what people actually need. I'm about to close my laptop when I notice something strange in the margins of Zane's proposal. There are dates and times written in pencil barely visible. March 15, initial meeting. April 2, follow-up presentation. April 20, board approval. But according to Margaret, Zane gave his presentation last week. That would make it mid-May. So what happened in March and April? I grab my phone and scroll back through my text messages with Zane. In March, he asked me a lot of questions about my business. I thought he was just being a supportive brother, finally taking an interest in my work. But now I'm wondering if he was gathering information for something specific. March 10, River. Tell me more about your approach with anxious animals. I'm curious about how you handle different personalities. March 18, what's a typical day like for you? How many clients do you usually see? April 5, you mentioned that Mrs. Chen's work stress affects how she interacts with Biscuit. How do you help with that? April 12, do you think pet care could be helpful for people in high-stress jobs? At the time, I was so happy that Zane was finally interested in my work that I answered every question enthusiastically. I told him about my techniques for calming nervous dogs, about how I can tell when a cat is sick before their owner notices, about the way pet care affects entire families. I was giving him material for his presentation without even knowing it. But why would he need to present multiple times between March and May? And why did Margaret make it sound like he just presented last week? My phone rings, startling me out of my thoughts. It's Zane. River, he says before I can even say hello. I got your message. I can explain everything. I really hope so, I say, because I'm completely confused. Your boss wants to give me a $50,000 contract for a pet therapy program I don't have, based on a presentation you apparently gave about how amazing my business is. The same business you called playing pretend this morning. There's a long pause. I know how it looks. How it looks. Zane, I found your business proposal. You wrote 15 pages about my work and made it sound like I'm some kind of professional therapist. You have dates in the margins that don't match what your boss told me. What is going on? Can we meet? He asks. This isn't something I can explain over the phone. I have to be at your office tomorrow morning at 10 to meet with Margaret Henderson. Can you explain it then? Actually, he says, and there's something strange in his voice. I think it would be better if we talked before your meeting. Can you come over tonight? Zane, just tell me the truth. Did you really present my business to your boss? Yes. And she really wants to hire me? Yes. But you also really think I'm just playing pretend? Another long pause. It's complicated, River. Then uncomplicate it. I will. I promise. Just come over around 8, okay? And River? What? Bring the proposal. We need to go through it together before your meeting tomorrow. After he hangs up, I sit in my dark apartment, trying to make sense of everything that's happened today. This morning, I was standing in Zane's kitchen, feeling like a complete failure. Tonight, I have a meeting scheduled with a CEO who wants to pay me more money than I've ever imagined. The only thing that makes sense is that nothing makes sense. I look at the business proposal again, paying closer attention to the details. Zane has included things I never told him about, like how I always carry treats for anxious dogs, or how I take photos of pets during visits so their families can see how happy they are while they're away. How did he know about those things? Then I remember, last month, he came with me on a few client visits. He said he wanted to understand my work better. I thought he was just being supportive, but now I wonder if he was taking notes. I flip to the back of the proposal and find a section I missed before. Expansion opportunities. It outlines plans for corporate partnerships, employee wellness programs, and something called animal-assisted stress reduction for workplace environments. This isn't just about my current business. This is about turning what I do into something much bigger. The question is, why would Zane spend so much time and effort promoting my business to his boss, only to tell me I'm playing pretend? Unless he was lying about one of those things. I check my phone. It's 7:30 p.m. Time to get some answers. I grab the proposal and my keys, trying to prepare myself for whatever truth is waiting for me at Zane's apartment. But as I lock my door and head for the elevator, I can't shake the feeling that I'm about to learn something that will change everything I thought I knew about my brother. And maybe about myself, too. I ride the bus across town to Zane's building, clutching the proposal like a lifeline. Through the window, I watch the city lights blur past and try to imagine what my life might look like if this opportunity is real. $50,000. A partnership with a major company. Recognition that what I do actually matters. It sounds too good to be true. But then again, so did having a brother who secretly believed in me after spending years acting like he didn't. Maybe some things that sound too good to be true are actually just good enough to be real. I barely sleep that night. After my conversation with Zane, I'm more confused than ever. He explained some things, but not everything. He told me he believes in my business, but he still wouldn't explain why he threw away my business cards or why the timeline doesn't match up. Just trust me, he kept saying. Go to the meeting tomorrow and be yourself. Margaret Henderson is going to love you. But how can I be myself when I don't even understand what's happening? By 5 a.m., I'm already awake, staring at my ceiling and trying to figure out what to wear to meet the CEO of a major marketing firm. My entire wardrobe consists of jeans, t-shirts, and one dress I bought for my high school graduation 3 years ago. The graduation dress it is. I stand in front of my bathroom mirror, trying to make myself look professional. The dress is navy blue and simple, but it's wrinkled from sitting in my closet for so long. I don't own an iron, so I hang it in the bathroom while I take a hot shower, hoping the steam will help. My reflection stares back at me, and I barely recognize the nervous girl looking back. Yesterday, I was just River, who walks dogs. Today, I might become River, business partner of Henderson and Associates. If I don't mess this up completely. I'm standing outside the Henderson building at 9:30 a.m., craning my neck to see the top floors. The building is all glass and steel, reaching toward the sky like a monument to success. People in expensive suits walk past me like I'm invisible, talking on phones and checking tablets and looking like they know exactly where they belong. I definitely don't belong here. Through the lobby windows, I can see a security desk and elevators that probably require special key cards. Everything looks intimidating and official, and way above my level. But then I remember Mrs. Chen's text about getting her happy dog back, and Mr. Patterson's smile when I bring Charlie home, tired and content, and the way the Martinez children draw pictures of their cats for me to find. Maybe I don't belong in this building, but I belong with those families. And if Margaret Henderson thinks what I do could help other people too, then maybe I should trust her judgment. The elevator ride to the 30th floor feels like it takes forever. My reflection in the polished doors shows a scared young woman in a wrinkled dress and scuffed shoes, but it also shows someone who cares deeply about her work, even if that work involves cleaning litter boxes and picking up dog poop. Margaret Henderson's office is bigger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows look out over the city, and everything is decorated in shades of white and cream that probably cost more than I make in 6 months. But when Margaret stands up from behind her massive desk, her smile is warm and genuine. River, so wonderful to finally meet you in person, she says, walking around the desk to shake my hand. She's younger than I expected, maybe in her 40s, with kind eyes and laugh lines that make me feel instantly more comfortable. Please, sit down. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? Water would be great, I say, settling into a leather chair that's more comfortable than my bed. She pours water from a crystal pitcher and hands me a glass that probably costs more than my monthly grocery budget. Now let's talk about your remarkable business. For the next hour, Margaret walks me through Henderson and Associates' corporate wellness initiative. They want to offer stress relief services to their employees, and they believe pet therapy could be a game changer. She shows me statistics about workplace stress, employee burnout, and the proven benefits of animal-assisted therapy. Your brother's presentation last week was truly inspiring, she says, pulling out a copy of Zane's proposal. The way you've built genuine relationships with your clients, the personalized care you provide, the emotional intelligence you bring to your work. It's exactly what we need. I nod along, but inside I'm still confused about the timeline. Mrs. Henderson, can I ask you something? When exactly did my brother give you this presentation? She flips through her calendar, running her finger down the pages. It was last Tuesday, around 2 p.m. He seemed quite passionate about your work. Said you were too modest to promote yourself properly, so he wanted to make sure we knew what we were missing. Last Tuesday, I remember that day clearly because it was one of my worst days ever. 3 clients canceled on me because they were going out of town. My car broke down on the way to walk Charlie, and I had to take 2 buses to get to all my appointments. I came home exhausted and crying, telling Zane maybe I should just give up and get a real job like everyone kept telling me to. He listened to me cry for 2 hours. He made me tea and told me I was stronger than I thought. He said my work mattered, even if other people didn't understand it. And then, apparently, he went to work the next day and presented my business to his CEO. The thing is, Margaret continues, we've been struggling to find the right partner for this initiative. We need someone who understands that this isn't just about bringing cute animals to the office for a few minutes. We need someone who understands the deeper connection between humans and animals, someone who can create real therapeutic value. She leans forward, her eyes bright with excitement. Your brother told us about your approach, how you don't just provide pet care, but how you help people understand their pets better, how you create bonds that reduce anxiety and depression. That's not just a business, River. That's a calling. My throat tightens. All those times I've felt like what I do doesn't matter, like I'm not as successful as Zane or as important as other people. But maybe I've been looking at success all wrong. What would this partnership look like? I ask, surprised by how steady my voice sounds. Margaret slides a contract across the desk. We'd start with a 6-month pilot program. You'd bring therapy animals to our office twice a week, conduct stress relief sessions for our employees, and help us develop a comprehensive pet therapy program that we could eventually offer to our clients as well. I scan the contract, trying to understand all the legal language. But my eyes stop on the compensation section, and I have to read it 3 times before it sinks in. It's not just $50,000 for the whole year. It's $50,000 for 6 months, with the potential for a permanent position that could pay twice that much. River, Margaret says gently. I'll be honest with you, we interviewed 5 other pet therapy companies before your brother brought us your proposal. But none of them had what you have. What do I have? I whisper. Heart, she says simply. You don't just work with animals, you understand them. And more importantly, you understand the people who love them. I think about Mrs. Chen, who works 60-hour weeks but never forgets to ask about Biscuit's favorite toy. I think about the Martinez children, who draw pictures of their cats and leave them for me to find like little love letters. I think about Miss Patterson, whose eyes light up when I tell him about Charlie's adventures at the dog park. Maybe Zane was wrong when he said I was just playing pretend. Maybe I've been building something real all along, something that matters to people in ways I never fully understood. I'd like to accept your offer, I hear myself saying. Margaret's face breaks into a huge smile. Wonderful. We can start next Monday if that works for you. And River? Yes? Your brother was right about one thing. You are too modest. What you've built is extraordinary. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. As I sign the contract, my hands are steady for the first time all morning. The signature looks official and important on the expensive paper. River Blackwood, Director of Pet Therapy Services. I'm not just River who walks dogs anymore. I'm River, business owner. River, corporate partner. River, who matters, walking out of the Henderson building. I feel like I'm floating. This city looks different somehow, brighter, more welcoming. People in business suits no longer seem like they're from a different world. I'm one of them now. But I still need answers from Zane. Something about this whole situation doesn't add up, and I'm determined to figure out what really happened. I pull out my phone and call him. River, he answers on the first ring. How did it go? I signed the contract, I say. $50,000 for 6 months, with the possibility of a permanent position. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Zane, I say, stopping in the middle of the sidewalk. I need to ask you something, and I want a straight answer. Okay, why did you throw away my business cards yesterday if you were planning to get me the biggest opportunity of my life? There's a long pause. It's complicated. Then make it simple. Can we meet for dinner tonight? I promise I'll explain everything. No more excuses.
No more excuses.
As I hang up the phone, I realize that for the first time in my life, I'm the one with the upper hand. I'm the one with the important job and the big contract and the bright future. And I'm finally ready to hear the truth about why my brother has been playing such a confusing game with my heart and my dreams. I'm floating on air as I leave the Henderson building, the signed contract tucked safely in my purse like a golden ticket. $50,000 for 6 months. A real partnership with a major company. Recognition that what I do actually matters to people beyond my small circle of clients. But underneath the excitement, anger is building. Not the hurt, defeated anger I felt yesterday when Zane threw away my business cards. This is different, sharper, more focused. This is the anger of someone who finally has some power and wants answers. The city looks different as I walk through downtown. The glass buildings and busy streets that used to intimidate me now feel like they might actually welcome someone like me. I catch my reflection in a storefront window and see someone who belongs in the business world. Someone who just signed an important contract. I decide to walk to Zane's apartment instead of taking the bus. I need time to think, to prepare for the conversation we're about to have. For years, I've let Zane be the successful one, the smart one, the one whose opinion mattered most. But today, something has shifted. Today, I'm the one with good news to share. I find Zane sitting on his couch when I arrive, still in his work clothes, but looking rumpled and tired. When he sees me, his face lights up with what looks like genuine excitement. "River," he says, jumping up from the couch. "Tell me everything. How did it go with Margaret?" "It went well," I say, staying near the door instead of sitting down. "Really well, actually. And I signed a contract for $50,000. I pull the papers out of my purse and set them on his coffee table. 6 months to start, with the possibility of a permanent position. His face breaks into a huge smile. "River, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you." "Are you?" I ask, crossing my arms. "Because yesterday you told me I was just playing pretend." The smile fades from his face. He sits back down on the couch and runs his hands through his hair, messing up his usually perfect styling. "I know how that looked," he says quietly. "How it looked?" My voice gets louder. "Zane, you threw my business cards in the garbage and told me real businesses don't operate out of tiny apartments. You made me feel like everything I've worked for was worthless." "I know. And then I find out you've been secretly promoting my business to your boss. You wrote a 15-page proposal about how amazing my work is. You got me the biggest opportunity of my life." "I know. So which is it?" I'm pacing now, too angry to stand still. "Do you think I'm playing pretend? Or do you think I'm running an amazing business that deserves a corporate partnership?" Zane looks up at me, and I'm shocked to see that his eyes are red like he's been crying. "Both," he says quietly. "Both?" "River, sit down, please. Let me explain." I stay standing. "Then explain." He takes a deep breath. "Do you remember when we were kids, and you used to take care of that stray cat behind the grocery store?" The question catches me off guard. Whiskers. What does that have to do with anything? "You spent your entire allowance on cat food for 6 months," he says. "You snuck out of the house every morning before school to feed him. You made him a little shelter out of cardboard boxes and old blankets. And when winter came, you begged Mom and Dad to let you bring him inside." I remember. They said no, that we couldn't afford a pet. Whiskers disappeared one day during a snowstorm, and I cried for a week. "You were 8 years old," Zane continues, "and you cared more about that cat than most adults care about anything in their lives. I was 10, and I was so jealous of you." "Jealous? Why would you be jealous?" "Because you had something I've never had," he says, his voice cracking. "You had a purpose. You knew exactly who you were supposed to be, even when you were just a little kid. I've spent my whole life trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with myself, and you've always just known." I stare at him, completely speechless. "When you started your pet sitting business, I was so proud of you," he continues. "But I was also terrified." "Terrified? Of what?" "Terrified that once you really got going, once people started to see what I've always known about you, everyone would realize that you're better than me, that you're the one who actually matters." "Zane, that's crazy. You're the successful one. You have the college degree and the fancy job and the nice apartment. I have a job where I write advertisements for products I don't believe in, he interrupts. I sit in meetings all day talking about market research and brand awareness. And I go home every night feeling empty. You go home every night knowing you made someone's life better. The room falls silent except for the sound of traffic outside. I sink into the chair across from him, trying to process what he's telling me. That still doesn't explain why you threw away my business cards, I say. He laughs, but it's not a happy sound. I was having the worst day of my career. Margaret had been asking everyone in the office to come up with innovative ideas for the wellness initiative, and I had nothing, absolutely nothing creative or useful to contribute. So you took it out on me? I came home and saw your business cards sitting on my counter, and I realized that my little sister, who never even finished college, had more entrepreneurial spirit and genuine purpose than I could ever hope to have. And instead of being happy for you, I got angry. Why? Because I was jealous, he says simply. Jealous that you were building something meaningful while I was just existing. He picks up one of my salvaged business cards from the coffee table. It's still stained and wrinkled from yesterday's disaster. After you left, I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. About your 15 clients. About making enough money to live on. About how none of that counted as a real business, in my opinion. And I realized I was completely wrong. So I sat down and wrote out everything I knew about your work. All the stories you've told me about Mrs. Chen and the Martinez family and Mr. Patterson. And I realized you weren't just walking dogs and feeding cats. What was I doing? You were providing therapy. You were helping people manage stress and anxiety through their relationships with their pets. You were solving real problems for real people. And you were doing it with more heart and intelligence than any of the corporate wellness programs I'd ever seen. I leaned back in my chair, overwhelmed. So you decided to present it to Margaret. I decided to present it to Margaret because I realized that if I was going to feel terrible about my own lack of purpose, I might as well do something good with the position I had. I thought maybe she'd hire you directly, or at least give you some referrals. And what about your job? Zane looks away. I honestly thought she might fire me for wasting her time with a personal favor. But she didn't. She didn't. When Margaret heard about your business, she got so excited that she gave me a promotion instead. She said anyone who could recognize talent like yours and think outside the box deserved more responsibility. I stare at him. You got promoted because of me? I got promoted because of you, he confirms. Margaret thinks I'm some kind of innovative thinker because I brought her the perfect solution to a problem she'd been struggling with for months. So you could have taken credit. You could have let her think it was your idea. It wasn't my idea, he says firmly. It was yours. It's always been yours. You're the one with the vision and the heart and the actual ability to help people. I'm just good at writing proposals. I sit in stunned silence, trying to make sense of everything he's told me. Zane, why didn't you just tell me what you were planning? Because you would have said no, he says simply. You would have said you weren't qualified or you weren't ready or you didn't deserve an opportunity like that. And I couldn't let you miss out on something this important because of your own self-doubt. So you made me think you didn't believe in me. Instead, I made a mistake, he admits. A huge, stupid mistake. I panicked when I saw how discouraged you were getting about your business, and I thought if I made you angry enough, you'd fight harder to prove me wrong. That's the dumbest plan I've ever heard. I know, he says with a weak smile. I'm really good at marketing other people's ideas, but I'm terrible at handling my own emotions. I look at my brother, really look at him. His perfect hair is messy. His expensive suit is wrinkled, and he looks more vulnerable than I've ever seen him. Zane, I say quietly, do you really think I'm better than you? River, you spent today convincing a CEO to invest $50,000 in your vision. What do you think? For the first time in our entire relationship, I see my brother not as the successful older sibling I could never measure up to, but as someone who's been struggling with his own doubts and insecurities all along. Maybe we're more alike than I thought. Over the next few days, I throw myself into preparing for my new role at Henderson & Associates. I research corporate wellness programs, contact local animal therapy organizations, and even buy a proper business suit with part of my advance payment. For the first time in my life, I feel like I have a real future ahead of me. But something keeps nagging at me about my conversation with Zane. His explanation made sense on the surface, but there were still gaps that didn't add up. The dates in the margins of his proposal. The way Margaret talked about him during our meeting. The timeline that seemed to shift depending on who was telling the story. I'm at Mrs. Chen's house on Friday afternoon, playing with Biscuit in her backyard, when I decide to call Margaret Henderson directly. If anyone can help me understand what really happened, it's her. River, how lovely to hear from you, she says when she picks up. I hope you're not having second thoughts about our partnership. Not at all, I assure her. I'm actually really excited to start on Monday. I just had a question about the timeline of everything. Of course, dear. What would you like to know? You mentioned that you interviewed 5 other pet therapy companies before Zane brought you my proposal. When did those interviews take place? There's a brief pause on the other end of the line. Oh, that's been an ongoing process for about 6 months now. We've been actively searching for the right partner since January. 6 months. That means they started looking for a pet therapy partner long before Zane's presentation last week. In fact, it means they were looking when he first started asking me all those detailed questions about my business back in March. And you said Zane seemed passionate about my work when he presented it to you? Absolutely passionate, Margaret confirms. Though I have to say, he was quite nervous about the whole thing. He kept apologizing and saying he hoped he wasn't overstepping his bounds by making a personal recommendation.
It was quite endearing, actually.
After I hang up, I sit in Mrs. Chen's garden with Biscuit curled up in my lap, trying to piece together what I've learned. If Margaret had been looking for a pet therapy partner for 6 months, and if Zane was nervous about overstepping his bounds, then maybe his story about being desperate to save his job wasn't the whole truth. Maybe there was more to this than he told me. That evening, I show up at Zane's apartment unannounced. He opens the door looking surprised but not unhappy to see me. River, what's up? Don't you have a big weekend of business planning ahead of you? I talked to Margaret Henderson today, I say, walking past him into his living room. She told me something interesting. His face goes carefully blank. Oh? What's that? She said they've been looking for a pet therapy partner for 6 months. Since January. Zane sits down heavily on his couch. Okay, that's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, River? I pull out my phone and scroll through my text messages until I find what I'm looking for. I also went back through our conversations from the past few months. Look at this text from February. I show him the screen. It's a message from him that says, River, I heard about this corporate pet therapy thing at work today. You should totally look into it. Your business would be perfect for something like that. He reads the message and closes his eyes. And this one from March, I continue, scrolling to another text. You asked me to tell you more about my approach with anxious clients. You said you were just curious, but you were really gathering information for a presentation, weren't you? River. And this one from April, where you asked me to walk you through a typical day with all my clients. You said you were trying to understand my business better, so you could be more supportive. I put my phone down and look at him directly. You've been planning this for months, haven't you? Zane doesn't say anything for a long moment. Then he laughs, but it sounds defeated rather than happy. You always were too smart for your own good, he says. Tell me the truth. All of it this time. He gets up and walks to the window, looking out at the city lights. Margaret mentioned the pet therapy initiative in a staff meeting back in January. She said they were looking for someone who could provide genuine therapeutic value, not just cute animals for people to pet during their lunch breaks. And you thought of me. I immediately thought of you. But when I brought it up casually in our conversation, you brushed it off. You said you weren't qualified for something like that you just walked dogs and fed cats. I remember that conversation. I was going through a particularly rough patch in February, doubting myself and my abilities. The idea of working with a big corporation seemed impossible and intimidating. So I started paying closer attention, Zane continues, really paying attention to what you do and how you do it. And I realized that you were completely wrong about yourself. What do you mean? You weren't just walking dogs and feeding cats, River. You were providing emotional support to families. You were helping people manage their stress and anxiety through their relationships with their pets. You were solving real problems in ways that most professional therapists couldn't. He turns around to face me. So I started taking notes. Every time you told me about a client, I wrote it down. Every time you explained your approach to a particular situation, I documented it. I was building a case for why Henderson and Associates should hire you. Why didn't you just tell me what you were doing? Because you would have said no, he says simply. You would have said you weren't qualified, or you weren't ready, or you didn't deserve an opportunity like that. And I couldn't let you miss this chance because of your own self-doubt. He walks back to the couch and sits down across from me. So, I waited. I waited for the right moment to present your case to Margaret. But the right moment never seemed to come, because you kept getting more and more discouraged about your business. Until last week, when I came to you crying about giving up. Until last week, when you came to me talking about getting a real job and giving up on everything you'd worked so hard to build. That's when I realized I was out of time. I lean back in my chair, overwhelmed by what he's telling me. So you've been working on this since January? I've been working on this since January, he confirms. I spent months researching corporate pet therapy programs, learning about the industry, figuring out how to position your business in the best possible light. And the business cards? Why did you really throw them away? Zane picks up one of my salvaged cards from his coffee table. Because I had just gotten off the phone with Margaret, confirming our meeting for the next day. I was so excited I could barely contain myself. But then you walked in talking about giving up. And I panicked. You panicked? I thought if you were ready to quit, you might say no to the meeting with Margaret. So I did the stupidest thing possible. I made you angry instead of telling you the truth. You made me angry because you thought it would motivate me. I made you angry because I'm an idiot who doesn't know how to handle emotions, he says with a self-deprecating smile. I thought if you were mad at me for not believing in you, you'd be more determined to prove me wrong. That's still the dumbest plan I've ever heard. I know, but it worked, didn't it? I stare at my brother, trying to process everything he's told me. Saying you spent 6 months of your life working to get me a corporate contract. I spent 6 months of my life trying to help my sister get the recognition she deserves. But why would you put that much time and effort into my business? He's quiet for a long moment, looking down at his hands. Do you remember when we were kids and I won that science fair in 8th grade? I nod. It was a big deal. He got his picture in the local newspaper and everything. Do you remember what you said to me that night at dinner? I shake my head. You said you were proud of me, but you also said you couldn't wait to see what amazing things I would do when I grew up. You were so sure I was going to change the world somehow. You were always the smart one. But I haven't changed the world, River. I haven't even changed my own life in any meaningful way. I have a good job and a nice apartment. But I go to bed every night wondering if this is all there is. He looks up at me. But you? You've been changing the world one family at a time since you were 8 years old. You just never realized it. I feel tears starting to form in my eyes. Zane, when I see you with your clients, when I hear you talk about helping people through their pets, I see that same little girl who spent her allowance taking care of a stray cat. I see someone who knows exactly who she's supposed to be. And you don't? I'm still figuring it out. But helping you get this opportunity, that felt like the most important thing I've ever done with my business skills. I look at my brother, really look at him, and for the first time in our lives, I see him clearly, not as the successful older sibling I could never measure up to, but as someone who's been quietly supporting my dreams while struggling with his own sense of purpose. There's something else, isn't there? I say quietly. Something you still haven't told me. He nods slowly. How did you know? Because I know you, and because Margaret said something about you being nervous about overstepping your bounds. If this was just about helping me, you wouldn't have been nervous. You would have been confident. Zane closes his eyes. You're right. There is something else. What is it? It's about our parents, River. And it's about something they asked me to do that I couldn't bring myself to tell you. The room goes completely silent. I can hear my heart beating in my ears as I wait for Zane to continue. Whatever he's about to tell me, I can see in his face that it's going to hurt. What did they ask you to do? I whisper. Zane gets up and walks to his kitchen, coming back with a bottle of water that he doesn't open. He just holds it like he needs something to do with his hands. About a year ago, Mom and Dad started asking me about you, he says, about your situation, as they called it. My situation? Your business? Your life? The fact that you were almost 22 and still playing with pets instead of having a real career? The words hit me like a physical blow. I knew our parents weren't thrilled with my choices, but hearing it put so bluntly makes my chest tight. They were worried about you, Zane continues. Dad kept saying you were too smart to be wasting your life taking care of other people's animals. Mom kept asking if there was something they could do to help you find direction. So they came to you. They came to me because I'm the successful son with the business degree and the corporate job. They figured I might have some insight into how to help their disappointing daughter. I flinch at the word disappointing, even though I've always known that's how they see me. What exactly did they ask you to do? Zane finally opens his water bottle and takes a long drink. They asked me to talk to you about getting a real job. They wanted me to help you understand that you needed to think about your future, about building a career that could actually support you long term. And they offered to pay for you to go back to school if you wanted to study business or accounting or something practical. They said they'd help you get interviews at some of the companies I work with. I stare at him, trying to process what he's telling me. They wanted you to convince me to give up my business. They wanted me to convince you to be more like me. The irony isn't lost on me. All this time, I've been wishing I could be more like Zane, while our parents were asking him to make me more like him. But you didn't do it, I say. I couldn't do it, he corrects. Every time I started to bring it up, I'd watch you with one of your clients or listen to you talk about your work, and I realized they were asking me to destroy something beautiful. He sits back down, across from me, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. River, do you have any idea how you light up when you talk about Biscuit or Charlie or the Martinez cats? Do you know how rare it is to find someone who genuinely loves what they do? But they're right, aren't they? I say, my voice small. I'm not exactly building a stable career. You are building exactly the career you were meant to have, Zane says firmly. You just needed someone to help you see it. Is that why you started working on the Henderson proposal? To prove to Mom and Dad that my business was legitimate? I started working on the Henderson proposal because I wanted you to have the opportunities you deserved. But yes, part of me hoped that if I could show our parents that major corporations valued your work, they'd finally understand what I've always known about you. I lean back in my chair, overwhelmed. How long have they been asking you to fix me? Since last Christmas, he admits. Remember when we all had dinner together, and you were telling them about expanding your client base? They seemed supportive that night, but afterward they pulled me aside. I remembered that dinner. I thought it had gone well. I thought they were finally starting to take my business seriously. What did they say? They said they were worried you were getting too invested in something that wasn't sustainable. They said they could see you were passionate about it, but passion doesn't pay the bills. So they asked you to stage an intervention. They asked me to be the voice of reason, to help you see that while pet sitting was a nice hobby, you needed to think about your real future. And you've been carrying that around for almost a year? Zane nods, looking miserable. Every family gathering, every phone call, they'd ask if I'd talked to you yet, if I'd made any progress in helping you see sense. What did you tell them? I kept making excuses. I said you weren't ready to hear it, or that the timing wasn't right, or that I was still figuring out the best way to approach the subject. But really you were working on the Henderson proposal. Really, I was trying to find a way to prove them wrong without hurting you in the process. I think about all the times over the past year when Zane seemed distracted during family events, or when our parents would give me these concerned looks that I couldn't quite interpret. They still don't know, do they? I realize. About the Henderson contract. About my promotion. They still think I'm their failure of a daughter who needs help finding direction. Zane looks away, confirming my suspicion. When are you supposed to report back to them about your progress in fixing me? River. When? Zane. They're coming to town next week for my promotion ceremony, he says quietly. They want to take us both to dinner to celebrate. And they're expecting you to have good news about convincing me to give up my business. They're expecting me to have made some progress, yes. I stand up and start pacing around his living room, too agitated to sit still. So let me get this straight. Our parents think I'm a disappointment who needs career intervention. They've been pressuring you for a year to talk me out of my business. And instead of doing what they asked, you secretly got me a $50,000 corporate contract. That's about right. And now they're coming to town, expecting to hear that you've convinced me to be more responsible. But instead, they're going to find out that I'm the director of an innovative wellness program at your company. I hadn't really thought that far ahead, Zane admits. I stop pacing and look at him. What were you planning to tell them? I was hoping maybe I wouldn't have to tell them anything. Maybe you'd want to tell them yourself. You want me to be the one to explain to our parents that their successful son spent a year working to promote their unsuccessful daughter's business instead of following their instructions to shut it down. When you put it like that, it sounds pretty bad. I can't help it. I start laughing. Not happy laughter, but the kind of slightly hysterical laughter that comes when a situation is so absurd you don't know how else to react. River, are you okay? I'm fine, I say, still laughing. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the fact that you've been carrying around this huge secret for a year, working behind the scenes to build up my business while our parents think you're working to tear it down. I know it sounds crazy. It doesn't sound crazy, Zane. It sounds like the most incredible thing anyone has ever done for me. He looks up at me. You could have just done what they asked, I continue. You could have convinced me to give up my business and go back to school. It would have been easier than spending 6 months researching corporate pet therapy and writing detailed proposals. But then you wouldn't be you anymore. What do you mean? River, our parents raised us to believe that success looks like corner offices and big salaries and impressive job titles. But that's not who you are. You're the person who spent her allowance taking care of a stray cat. You're the person who makes Mrs. Chen feel less anxious and helps Mr. Patterson feel less lonely. He stands up and walks over to me. If I had convinced you to give up your business and become an accountant, or whatever, the world would have lost something important. It would have lost you. I feel tears starting to form in my eyes. So you decided to prove to them that I was successful on my own terms. I decided to prove to everyone, including you, that what you do matters just as much as any corporate job. And what about next week? When they come to town expecting to celebrate your promotion and hear about my career change. Zane grins, and for the first time in this whole conversation, he looks genuinely excited. Next week, they're going to learn that their daughter is just as successful as their son, just in a different way. You think they'll understand? I think when they see that major corporations are willing to pay you $50,000 for your expertise, they'll have to understand. I wipe my eyes and look at my brother. Zane, why didn't you just tell me what they asked you to do? Why keep it secret? Because I didn't want you to know that they saw you as a problem that needed fixing. You've spent your whole life feeling like you weren't good enough for them. I couldn't bear to make that worse. So instead you spent a year secretly working to prove my worth. I spent a year trying to show everyone what I've always known, that you're exactly who you're supposed to be. Looking at Zane now, I realize that while I've been feeling like the family disappointment, he's been feeling the weight of being the family success story. The pressure to be perfect, to have all the answers, to fix everyone else's problems. Zane, I say quietly, what if they don't understand? What if they think you should have followed their instructions instead of helping me succeed on my own terms? Then we'll face that together, he says, because for the first time in my life, I did something that mattered more than just following instructions or meeting expectations. What did you do? I helped my sister become everything she was meant to be. I'm about to respond when Zane's phone buzzes on the coffee table. He glances at it and his expression changes completely. His face goes pale and something that looks like panic flashes in his eyes. What is it? I ask. He shows me the screen. The message is from our mother. Zane, your father and I will be in town next week for your promotion ceremony. We're so proud of our successful son. Can't wait to hear how your talk with River went. I stare at the message, and suddenly something clicks into place that I hadn't understood before. Zane, when is your promotion ceremony? Next Friday. And when did you say Margaret offered you this promotion? After I presented your business proposal to her. He's looking at me strangely. Why? Because Margaret said she's been looking for a pet therapy partner for 6 months. If you got promoted because of my proposal, and the proposal was based on 6 months of research, then I trail off doing the math in my head. Then what? Then you started working on this before Mom and Dad asked you to talk to me about giving up my business. Zane sets his phone down very carefully, like it might explode if he's not gentle with it. River, they didn't ask you to fix me until Christmas, right? But you started researching corporate pet therapy in January, right after Margaret mentioned it at work. Yes, but... So when they asked you to convince me to give up my business, you were already working on a plan to help me expand it. Zane doesn't say anything, but I can see the truth in his face. Which means, I continue, my voice getting stronger as I piece it together. When they asked you to be the voice of reason and help me see that pet care wasn't a real career, you already knew they were wrong. River, it's not that simple, isn't it? I stand up, pacing again. Zane, you didn't spend 6 months working on my proposal because you felt guilty about our parents' request. You spent 6 months working on it because you believed in me before they ever asked you to doubt me. He runs his hands through his hair, completely destroying his usually perfect styling. Okay, yes, you're right. So why didn't you tell me that part? Because it makes me sound like even more of an idiot for throwing away your business cards. I stop pacing and look at him. What do you mean? River, I had been working for months to get you this opportunity. I had already scheduled the meeting with Margaret. I had already written the proposal and gotten it approved by her assistant. Everything was set up perfectly. And then you came to me crying about giving up. And instead of telling you that I had amazing news, I panicked and hurt your feelings instead. But why would you panic if everything was already arranged? Zane is quiet for a long moment. Then he gets up and walks to his kitchen, opening and closing cabinet doors like he's looking for something he can't find. Zane, what aren't you telling me? There's something else, he says without turning around. Something I haven't told you about the Henderson contract. My stomach drops. What kind of something? The contract you signed isn't just for a 6-month pilot program. What do you mean? He finally turns around to face me, and I can see that his hands are shaking slightly. Margaret offered you the 6-month pilot because she thought that's all you'd be comfortable with. But the program she really wants to implement is much bigger than that. How much bigger? She wants to franchise your approach to all 12 Henderson & Associates offices nationwide. She wants to create a whole new division of the company based on your methods. I sit down heavily in his chair. A whole new division? River, if the pilot program goes well, they're talking about offering you a position as Vice President of Wellness Innovation. The salary would be, he pauses, it would be more than I make. More than you make? Significantly more. I stare at him, trying to process what he's telling me. Zane, why didn't Margaret tell me any of this? Because I asked her not to. You asked her not to? I told her you'd need time to prove to yourself that you could handle the pilot program before you'd be ready to hear about the bigger opportunity. You told her I wasn't ready? I told her you were incredibly talented, but that you'd been undervalued for so long that you might not believe you deserve something that big. I can barely breathe. A vice presidency. More money than Zane makes. A national program based on my methods. How long have you known about this? Since March. Since March? Zane, that's when you started asking me all those detailed questions about my business. That's when Margaret first told me what she was really hoping to find. Not just someone to bring dogs to the office twice a week, but someone who could revolutionize how corporations think about employee wellness. And you thought of me. I knew it was you. River, everything she described, the emotional intelligence, the ability to understand both animals and people, the genuine care for helping others, that's exactly who you are. I get up and start pacing again, too overwhelmed to sit still. So when our parents asked you to convince me to give up my business, you already knew that major corporations were interested in expanding it nationwide. I already knew that you were going to have opportunities beyond anything our parents could imagine. So why didn't you just tell them that? Because I couldn't tell them about opportunities that weren't guaranteed yet. And because I wanted you to be the one to prove them wrong, not me. I stop in front of him. Zane, when you threw away my business cards, you already knew about the vice presidency possibility. He nods miserably. You already knew that Margaret wanted to franchise my approach. Yes. You already knew that I was going to have the chance to earn more money than you do? Yes. Then why? I'm almost shouting now. Why would you hurt me like that when you knew I was about to get the biggest opportunity of my life? Because I was terrified, he shouts back. And suddenly, we're both yelling in his living room like we're kids again. Terrified of what? Terrified that you'd say no. His voice cracks. River, you have no idea how badly you talk about yourself. You have no idea how convinced you are that you're not good enough for anything important. So I was afraid that if I told you about the vice presidency right away, you'd panic and convince yourself you weren't qualified. I was afraid you'd sabotage the opportunity before you even tried. So you decided to sabotage it yourself by making me feel terrible? I decided to start small and let you build confidence with the pilot program first. But then you came in talking about giving up entirely. And I realized I might lose you before you ever got the chance to see what you're capable of. So you threw away my business cards to make me angry enough to fight for my business. I threw away your business cards because I'm an emotional disaster who doesn't know how to handle high-pressure situations involving people I care about. We're both breathing hard, staring at each other across his living room. I can see tears in his eyes, and I realize this conversation has been just as overwhelming for him as it has been for me. Zane, I say quietly, do you really think I would have said no to a vice presidency? I think you would have found a way to convince yourself you didn't deserve it. And you think I deserve it? River, I think you're the most naturally gifted person I've ever met at understanding what people and animals need. I think corporations would be lucky to have you. I think you're going to change how businesses think about taking care of their employees. And you've thought this since January? I've thought this since we were kids, and you spent your allowance taking care of that stray cat. I sink back into my chair, completely drained. Zane, why didn't you just trust me to handle the truth? Because I've spent my whole life watching our parents underestimate you. I've watched teachers underestimate you. I've watched you underestimate yourself, and I couldn't bear the thought that you might miss out on something incredible because everyone, including you, forgot to notice how amazing you are. Looking at my brother now, I see someone who has been carrying an enormous secret, not to hurt me, but to protect me from my own self-doubt. Someone who has been working for months to create opportunities for me while watching me struggle with feeling unsuccessful. There's one more thing, he says quietly. What? The reason I was so nervous when I presented your proposal to Margaret wasn't because I was afraid of overstepping my bounds at work. Then why? Because I was afraid that even after everything I'd done to set this up perfectly, you might still find a way to convince yourself you weren't good enough to accept it. I really look at him, and for the first time, I understand the weight he's been carrying. Not just the pressure from our parents, but the fear that his little sister might never see her own worth. Zane, I whisper, what if I had said no? Then I would have kept trying until I found a way to make you believe in yourself. For how long? For as long as it took. Walking into the Henderson & Associates conference room on Monday morning, I feel completely different than I did a week ago. I'm not just River who walks dogs anymore. I'm not River, the family disappointment. I'm River who has been seen and valued by the person whose opinion has always mattered most to me, even when I didn't realize it. The conference room is filled with about 20 employees, all looking curious and slightly skeptical. I recognize the expression. It's the same one I used to see on my own face in the mirror. These are people who have been told that success looks like working 60-hour weeks in sterile offices, climbing corporate ladders, measuring their worth in quarterly reports and profit margins. They think this pet therapy program is going to be some fluffy, feel-good nonsense that takes them away from their real work. Margaret introduces me to the group, explaining the pilot program and what we hope to accomplish. I can see some eye rolling, some checking of phones, some barely concealed impatience. A few people are obviously wondering why the company is wasting time and money on this when they have deadlines to meet. I know what you're thinking, I say, standing up in front of the group. You're thinking this is a waste of time. You're thinking you have emails to answer and projects to finish, and that playing with puppies isn't going to help you hit your performance targets. A few people look surprised that I called them out so directly, but I can see I have their attention now. A year ago, I would have agreed with you, I continue. I thought real work meant suffering. I thought if you weren't stressed and exhausted and miserable, you weren't working hard enough. I pull out my phone and show them a picture of Mrs. Chen with Biscuit. This is Mrs. Chen. She's a tax attorney who works 70 hours a week during busy season. She used to come home every night too tired to walk her dog, too stressed to enjoy her pet, too burned out to remember why she got Biscuit in the first place. I swipe to the next photo. Mrs. Chen and Biscuit playing in the park, both of them grinning. This is Mrs. Chen, after 6 months of having someone she trusts take care of Biscuit during her busiest days. She still works 70 hours a week during tax season, but now she comes home to a happy, exercise dog who's excited to see her. Instead of feeling guilty about neglecting her pet, she feels grateful to have this joyful relationship in her life. I can see the skeptical expressions starting to soften. Her productivity at work increased 20%, I say. Not because she's working more hours, but because she's not carrying the stress and guilt of feeling like she's failing at something that matters to her. I show them more pictures. The Martinez children with their cats, Mr. Patterson with his therapy dog visits, other clients whose lives have been touched by the simple act of knowing their beloved pets are safe and happy. This isn't about playing with puppies, I explain. This is about removing barriers to your success. It's about eliminating sources of stress that you might not even realize are affecting your work performance. A woman in the back raises her hand. But we don't all have pets. You're right, I say. But you all have sources of stress outside of work that affect your ability to focus while you're here. Maybe it's worrying about your kids after school, or your elderly parents, or your own health. The principle is the same. When we address the things that cause us anxiety in our personal lives, we show up better in our professional lives. Margaret steps forward. River, why don't you tell them about your approach to corporate wellness? I take a deep breath. 6 months ago, I didn't even know I had an approach to corporate wellness. But thanks to Zane's research and his belief in me, I've learned that what I do intuitively actually has a name and a methodology. Traditional corporate wellness programs focus on individual self-care, I explain. Exercise programs, meditation apps, stress management seminars. Those things are great, but they're asking you to add more things to your already overwhelming schedule. I gesture to the group. How many of you have signed up for the company gym membership and then felt guilty for not using it? About half the hands in the room go up, and there are some rueful chuckles. Exactly. My approach is different. Instead of asking you to do more, I'm asking you to worry less. Instead of adding self-care to your to-do list, I'm removing barriers to your peace of mind. Over the next hour, I walk them through the program we're going to implement. Twice a week, I'll bring therapy dogs to the office for stress relief sessions. But more importantly, I'll work with employees who have pets to create support systems that ensure their animals are cared for during busy periods, travel, or emergencies. The goal isn't just to give you 15 minutes of puppy therapy, I explain. The goal is to eliminate pet-related stress from your life entirely, so you can focus on what you do best. After the session, people linger to ask questions and share stories about their own pets. A man named David tells me about his elderly cat who needs medication twice a day, and how he's been turning down business trips because he can't find reliable pet care. A woman named Sarah mentions that she's been considering getting a dog but worries about the responsibility while working such long hours. As the room empties out, Margaret approaches me with a huge smile. River, that was extraordinary, she says. I've never seen our employees engage with a wellness program like that. Really? Really? You didn't just present a service, you presented a solution to problems they didn't even realize they could solve. I think about what Zane said, about how I've always known who I'm supposed to be. Maybe he's right. Maybe all those years of feeling like I didn't fit in weren't because there was something wrong with me, but because I was meant to fit somewhere else. Margaret, I say, can I ask you something? Of course. Zane told me about the bigger opportunity, the vice presidency, the national expansion. Her eyes light up. Ah, so he finally told you about that. Why didn't you mention it when we first met? Because your brother knows you better than anyone, she says with a smile. He said you'd need to prove to yourself that you could handle this level of responsibility before you'd be ready to hear about the next level. You think I'm ready now? But more than that, I finally understand what Zane has been trying to tell me all along, that success isn't about fitting into someone else's definition of achievement. It's about becoming so authentically yourself that the world has no choice but to make room for what you have to offer. My phone buzzes with a text from Zane. How did your first session go? I text back, amazing. Thank you for believing in me before I believed in myself. His response comes immediately. I'll always believe in you. That's what big brothers are for. Walking out of the Henderson building, I realize that tomorrow I'll be back here and the day after that, and for months to come. This isn't just a lucky break or a one-time opportunity. This is my career now. This is my life. And for the first time ever, I can't wait to see what comes next. That evening, I'm at home updating my client files when my phone rings. It's our mother. River, honey, she says when I answer. How are you? Zane mentioned you had some kind of meeting at his office today. Hi, Mom. Yes, I started a new position today. Oh, that's wonderful. What kind of position? I take a deep breath. I'm the director of pet therapy services at Henderson and Associates. There's a long pause. Pet therapy? I'm developing a corporate wellness program that helps employees manage stress through better pet care support. Another pause. That sounds interesting, dear. Is it full-time? Yes, Mom. It's a full-time position with a 6-month contract and the possibility of expansion to a permanent role. Well, that's nice. Your father and I will be in town next week for Zane's promotion ceremony. We'd love to hear more about your new job. After she hangs up, I sit in my apartment looking around at my small space. In a few months, I might be able to afford a bigger place. Maybe even buy something instead of renting. But right now, I'm perfectly happy where I am. This tiny apartment is where I built my business. This kitchen table is where I planned my expansion. This couch is where I sat with soggy business cards and wondered if I was just playing pretend. I wasn't playing pretend. I was building something real, something important, something that matters. And next week, when my parents come to town expecting to hear that Zane convinced me to give up my dreams, they're going to learn that their daughter was already living hers. 3 months later, I'm standing in the same conference room at Henderson and Associates. But everything has changed. The walls are covered with photos from our pet therapy sessions. Employees smiling with therapy dogs, pictures of team members' pets, thank you notes from people whose lives have been touched by the program. David, the man who was afraid to travel because of his elderly cat, just got back from a successful business trip to Tokyo. Sarah adopted the dog she'd been dreaming about and brings her to our Friday afternoon pups and productivity sessions. The program has been so successful that 3 other companies have reached out asking if we can develop similar programs for them. But the biggest change isn't in the room, it's in me. River, Margaret says, joining me as I set up for today's session. I have some news to share with you. Good news, I hope. The best news, she says, grinning. The board of directors wants to offer you that permanent position we discussed. Director of Innovative Wellness Program. It would mean expanding your program company-wide, developing new wellness initiatives, and yes, a salary that reflects the real value you bring to this organization. I stare at her, still amazed that these opportunities keep coming. Director of Innovative Wellness Programs. 6 months ago, I didn't even think my dog walking business was real. There's more, Margaret continues. We want to franchise your approach. We think other Henderson and Associates offices around the country could benefit from what you've built here. Franchise my approach. River, what you've created isn't just a pet therapy program. It's a completely new way of thinking about corporate wellness. You've proven that when we address employees' personal sources of stress, their professional performance improves dramatically. She shows me a folder full of data, productivity metrics, employee satisfaction surveys, retention rates. Every number has improved since we started the program. Our client satisfaction scores have gone up 15%, Margaret says. Our employee sick days have decreased by 20%. And our team reports the highest job satisfaction levels in the company's history. I flipped through the pages, amazed. All of this from helping people take better care of their pets? It's not about the pets, I say, suddenly understanding something I've been feeling but couldn't put into words. It's about helping people be whole. Exactly, Margaret says. When people don't have to split themselves between their work life and their personal life, when they can bring their whole selves to work, including their love for their animals, they perform better in every area. After Margaret leaves, I sit in the quiet conference room looking at the photos on the walls. Each picture tells a story of connection, of stress relieved, of joy rediscovered. But there's one story that matters more to me than all the others. My phone buzzes with a text from Zane. Mom and Dad are in town for my promotion ceremony tonight. They want to take us both to dinner afterward. Are you ready for this? I stare at the message for a long moment. Our parents still don't know the full truth about my success at Henderson and Associates. They still think I'm their unsuccessful daughter who needed career guidance. Part of me wants to show up in my new business suit and tell them about my promotion, my salary, my franchise opportunities. But another part of me realizes that I don't need their approval anymore. I know who I am now. I text back, I'm ready. Let's show them what success really looks like. That evening, we meet at the same upscale restaurant where we had dinner 3 months ago when this all began. My parents look exactly the same. Dad in his conservative suit, Mom with her perfectly styled hair, both of them radiating the kind of success that comes from following all the traditional rules. But Zane and I look different. We both carry ourselves with more confidence, and there's something between us now that wasn't there before. A real partnership, a genuine understanding of each other. Congratulations on your promotion, Zane, Mom says once we've ordered. Vice President of Strategic Development. We're so proud of you. Thank you, Zane says. But I have to say, my promotion is partly thanks to River. Our parents exchange glances. River, Dad asks. How so? Well, Zane says, cutting into his steak, she helped me develop the initiative that got me promoted. It's our most successful program in years. I kick him under the table. But he just grins at me. River helped you with a work project, Mom asks, clearly confused. More than helped, Zane says. She designed it. She runs it. She's now the director of innovative wellness programs at Henderson and Associates. The silence at the table is so complete I can hear the conversations from other tables around us. Director? Dad repeats faintly. Director of Innovative Wellness Programs, I say quietly. It's a position they created specifically for me. But you take care of pets, Mom says, like she's trying to solve a puzzle. I do take care of pets, I agree. I also provide corporate wellness services, develop stress reduction programs for working professionals, and help companies improve employee satisfaction and productivity. It turns out that's a valuable service that major corporations are willing to pay quite well for. I pull out my phone and show them some of the photos from our sessions. This is David with his therapy dog. He's a senior account executive who used to turn down business trips because he couldn't find reliable pet care. This is Sarah with her new puppy. She's a project manager who was burning out from 60-hour weeks. I swipe through more photos. This is the Henderson and Associates lobby during our Bring Your Pet to Work Day. This is a thank you card from an employee whose anxiety decreased so much after joining our program that she was able to take on a leadership role she'd been afraid to pursue. Our parents stare at the photos in stunned silence. River, Mom says slowly, how much does this position pay? When I tell them my salary, Dad actually drops his fork. But we thought, Mom starts, then stops herself. You thought I was a failure, I say gently. You thought I was wasting my potential, that I needed help finding direction. We were concerned about your future, Dad says carefully. I know you were, but you were concerned about the wrong things. You were worried that I wasn't successful by your definition of success. But I was building something important all along. Zane reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. River has always known exactly who she's supposed to be. It just took the rest of us a while to catch up. And you knew about this. Mom asks Zane, when we asked you to talk to her about finding a more stable career path, I knew about it because I helped make it happen, Zane says firmly. When you asked me to convince River to give up her business, I realized you were asking me to destroy something beautiful. So instead, I spent 6 months working to show the corporate world what I'd always known, that River's work matters. You went against our wishes? Dad asks, and there's something in his voice that might be disapproval, or might be amazement. I followed my conscience, Zane says. And I'm glad I did, because River's program is now being franchised to 12 cities across the country. As we leave the restaurant, my parents still seem overwhelmed by everything they've learned. But as we're saying goodbye on the sidewalk, Dad pulls me aside. River, he says quietly, I owe you an apology. Your mother and I made assumptions about your path, because it was different from what we expected. But different doesn't mean wrong. Dad, let me finish, he says. I'm proud of you. Not just because of your salary or your title, but because you found a way to help people while being exactly who you are. That takes courage. He hugs me then, really hugs me. And I feel something in my chest that I haven't felt since I was a little girl. The simple joy of being seen and accepted by the people who raised me. Walking home through the city that night, I think about the journey that brought me here. It started with soggy business cards in a garbage can, and a brother who threw them away. But it was never really about the business cards. It was about learning to see my own worth, to understand that success comes in many forms, and to trust that the things that make us different are often the things that make us valuable. My phone buzzes with a text from Mrs. Chen. River, I saw the article about you in the Business Journal. Biscuit and I are so proud of our favorite wellness professional. You're going to change the world, one happy family at a time. I smile, looking up at the stars barely visible above the city lights. Maybe I won't change the whole world, but I've learned that changing one small corner of it, making life a little better for the people and animals I care about, is its own kind of success. And sometimes, that's exactly enough. Standing here in the city that once intimidated me, wearing a business suit I bought with money I earned doing work I love, I realized that Zane was right about something important. I always did know who I was supposed to be. I just needed someone to believe in me long enough for me to believe in myself. River's story shows us that sometimes the people who believe in us most are working behind the scenes in ways we never imagine. Her brother Zane spent months building her up while she thought he was tearing her down, proving that love sometimes looks different than we expect. Where are you listening from today? Drop a comment and let me know what city or country you're in. I love hearing from listeners all around the world. If River's journey inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to spread more stories of kindness and hope. Your support helps me share tales that remind us we're all more valuable than we think. And speaking of inspiring stories, there's another amazing video appearing on your screen right now that I think you'll love. Click on it to continue this journey of discovering the hidden kindness all around us. Remember, you matter more than you know, just like River did.